welcome back to another live stream. Today, I want to bring to you a special topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart, and that is the topic of self care. Now, today's live stream is brought to you by the Next Level Mastermind. The Next Level Mastermind is a group of small business owners, full time self employed folks who are absolutely committed to living their dream life first and foremost, and building a business that supports the lifestyle that they desire to live. It is a group of people who are absolutely committed to unceasing personal and professional growth, people who are committed to serving others at the highest level through the products and services they have to offer. If you are looking to do life with other people who understand what it's like to live life at the level of where you take all of the risk, all of the decisions that fall on your plate, and if you're looking for a group of people who not only understand what it's like to have all of that risk, but to do life with a group of people who can give you valuable feedback, wisdom, experience, and insight as it relates to running a successful business. The Next Level Mastermind, nextlevelmastermind.info. And of course, this live stream is also brought to you by my very free 1-hour opening keynote address titled All Beliefs Have Consequences. You can get it over at mindsetanswerman.com/free. This video will teach you how to discover what limiting beliefs are holding you back from taking action, maybe help explain why you might be procrastinating on some of the goals that you have set out for yourself, maybe some of the reasons why you have struggled to break through the financial ceiling and you find yourself consistently bumping up to a certain level of success financially and you haven't been able to break through to that new level of success. This is exactly what the opening keynote address, All Beliefs Have Consequences, is all about. Learn how to discover your limiting beliefs, how to eliminate them from your life, how to replace them with new beliefs that will get you what you most want in life. mindsetanswerman.com/free. All right, so the topic for today is self-care. And this is a topic that I don't hear talked about quite enough. There has often been conversations around, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink of water before I move any further. And then I'm officially going to hopefully clear this out of my throat because there is something right here. I haven't been speaking, I haven't been talking for the last couple of hours, and I just noticed there's something right here. Another drink or two. Of course, I should have maybe done some vocal warm-ups. Maybe I should have tried some sample talking, communicating a couple of sentences or something like that before going live. But hey, here I am. I'm live. I'm not going to edit this. I'm not going to restart. We're going to be good to go. I know it. It's going to work out. So I'm just going to hit a little flag on my audio recording over here. That's going to let me know that this is the start. And what you're about ready to hear will be the beginning of what's going to be in the next episode of The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. So let me just hit that little flag button. So today what I want to talk about is the topic of self-care. In fact, the title of this message is Inner Peace: 7 Essential Self-Care Practices for the Busy Self-Employed Professional. The reason why this topic is so important to me right now is because just at the end of last year, I had a number of one-on-one coaching conversations and facilitated a couple of mastermind group meetings where the hot seats for the individuals involved, their greatest obstacles and struggles were the result of the lack of self-care practices in their daily and or weekly routines. And I've got to tell you that I have experienced a lack of self-care in each of these 7 essential areas from time to time. And there are very few times, even though I'm as intentional as I encourage others to be at times, it just seems like you might be shocked about this, but I'm not perfect. And there are times where I let the ball drop in a pretty significant way in certain areas of these self-care practices. But what I have learned, and there have been seasons of my life where all 7 of these seem to be flowing pretty effortlessly from me. Not because it happened overnight, it happened over the course of sustained effort and will. But when I have all 7 of these practices, it seems like life just flows. And when some of these, and it's very seldom that I have all 7 flow for an incredibly long period of time, but occasionally something will happen in my external circumstances. My focus will be drawn to what's happening in the outside. Of course, I allow myself to remain focused on external circumstances, and we'll talk about this thing that happened in 2020. Some of you may have heard of it. It was a global lockdown called shelter in place. That was one thing that was in the external that fully captivated my attention, and I went all in on the attention, and also it disrupted 2 significant routines within my life. And I haven't quite bounced all the way back on those. And so let me just jump straight in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go practice by practice of these 7 essential self-care practices and share with you my experience with each of them individually. So, practice number 1, regular exercise. Now, I know many of you have heard my story of my entrepreneurial journey, how I went from a lifetime of a employee and transitioned into my own full-time self-employed journey. This was back in January 2008, 15 years ago. And when I became full-time self-employed, I did not know what I didn't know about being a business owner. I had all sorts of limiting beliefs about pricing, and I charged nothing, nowhere near enough for me to provide for myself and my family in those first few months. But even still, I didn't know about marketing on online business. I didn't know about all of these other things. I was generating about $3,000 to $5,000 a month when I was doing this part-time. And I just figured, hey, if I just devote the first 40 hours of my work week to doing this, gosh, how much more money would I be generating? And the answer to that question is not a whole lot more with the amount of knowledge and experience and the emotional limiting beliefs that I had at the time. It's just like I had so many things to overcome. And so what happened in my first year of business, for the first 9 months, I worked 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week without a single day off. Now, thankfully, financially, I was able to pay for my CPA, who was handling all the bookkeeping and the tax accounting and making sure all of that stuff squared away because I knew nothing about those things. And I was able to pay for my health insurance for my family because now I'm a business owner. I don't have an employer who pays for my health insurance, except for, actually, I guess I do. And it's that employer is my business. So technically speaking, the way my corporation is set up is as an LLC with a S-Corp election, which I knew nothing about what that meant back then. Today, I know quite a bit about it, but still, my employer, Ravenscraft Enterprises, LLC, which is I was the sole employee for, I was able to generate enough money in the work activities that I was doing to pay for that CPA and to pay for that health insurance and to pay for the ongoing business costs associated to software tools and a little bit of hardware here and there for some of the gear that I was buying to upgrade the production of what I was doing throughout my business. So, one thing I did not earn enough money for was this thing called payroll. For the first 9 months of my business, unfortunately, as a business owner, I did not pay any of my employees, which again, I was the only employee in. Well, actually, technically, Stephanie is now a second employee. She actually came on as a payrolled, salaried, not salaried. Technically, I guess you'd call her salaried, but she became an employee just a few years ago, and that's because it's like we only did that for tax purposes or social security purposes. First decade or more of our business, Stephanie was never labeled as an employee because I just drew the one income from the business, and she and I, that's our income to the family. But I did learn a couple of years ago that it's like, hey, are you paying Stephanie at least this amount each year? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Well, you probably want to do that so that you can get Social Security benefits for her when she is of that age. And I'm like, okay, great. But I'm getting off track here. What I'm trying to say is that I made no personal income for 9 months, working 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, without a single day off. And as a husband and having a wife who is a stay-at-home mom, is how she would describe herself at the time, and we had 3 young children, that weighed very heavily on my mind. Now, thankfully, because of the career that I had before I became full-time self-employed, we had plenty of savings. We had, I was incredibly well paid before. We had become debt-free after a long journey of paying off debt. But we had become debt-free minus our mortgage. So the only thing we had to cover each month was our mortgage and utilities and the cost of putting food on the table. But I got to tell you, during those 9 months, that was a pretty. We lived very frugal lives, to say the very least. But then after 9 months, I decided, you know what? It's time for me to start taking a day a week off. And then when I decided to take that day a week off, I felt like, man, that seems pretty extravagant, especially given the fact that you're still not increasing your income by a whole large amount. And one of the things that I did during that last 3 months of the year is I took out some money out of my retirement account, and I ended up having to pay, the penalties and fees associated with taking out money out of a retirement account early, and also the taxes on that. And as a result of that, I was able to have a little bit of cash flow positive to make ends meet there. And finally, by the end of the year, the last 3 months of that year, I was able to start paying myself. And I made $11,000 net income that first year in business. But one thing that I didn't tell you, and some of you have heard this before, but for me to be able to take that extra day off or that day off every week, I did so by committing to myself that I would work more hours during the other 6 days of the week. And so, yes, during the last 3 months of 2008, I was averaging about 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and the rest was all work. And very little time of actually taking a full break for lunch or dinner. Many times that would be having lunch or dinner at my desk. I'm not proud of any of that, quite frankly. It was all because of my beliefs, and as a result of the fact that my days consisted of getting out of bed, grabbing something quick to eat in the kitchen, walking down a set of stairs, working until lunchtime, going up, grabbing something out of the kitchen and bringing it down to my office, and then working until dinner time, sometimes having dinner with the family, which required a walk up to the steps, up the stairs, or walking up the stairs, not having dinner with the family, and going back down to my office with food. And then at the end of the day, finally going back upstairs and just calling it a day and going to bed, sometimes around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, I want you to imagine that routine 6 or 7 days a week. And think about the fact that there was no practice, no routine of daily physical activity. I was just all in on being of service to others at the highest level. Everything, I had this belief that if I could just serve enough people, even with the low amounts that I'm charging people. But if I would just serve, I at some way it's all going to come back to me, because life is all about putting other people's needs above and beyond my own. And if I could just put up with this self-sacrifice long enough, eventually it's going to come back to me. Well, there is a lot to be said for serving others at the highest level. I still have that as one of my highest values in life, of being of service at the highest level. But no longer do I have the value that life is all about putting other people's needs before my own. In fact, quite the opposite. Today, I live a life where I intentionally put my own needs first and foremost. And it's only by doing that, by investing in myself, that I can become the person that I desire to be, that is able to serve others, my wife, my kids, and my community, my clients, my friends, at the highest level. I can't serve them at the highest level by putting everyone else's needs and not focusing on my own needs, especially in this first area of physical activity, regular exercise. It just wasn't something that was conditioned in me throughout my lifetime as a priority. Through most of my adult life, starting around 18, 19, 20 years old, and then all the way up until this time, I had been an overweight individual. I had pretty much accepted that that as a part of my identity. And, everyone knows that if you're an incredibly obese adult human being, you're not out there doing a lot of physical activity. And it was just accepted, and it was accepted in my own life. So, as a result of all of those countless number of hours invested into my business, putting everyone else's needs above my own, always saying, you know what, I've just got to get this done. I just got to get this done. I just got to get this out there. I got to get this done for this person. And still just barely making ends meet financially. As a result of that, and not working out, not having regular physical activity, and on top of all the stress, the anxieties, the fears, the worries, the emotional roller coasters. I mean, I had the wildest, the best, most exciting first year of my life, like first year in business in my life. It's like the highest highs emotionally. But I also, during that first year of business, experienced my lowest lows emotionally. And all of that stress, all of that anxiety, all of that lack of sleep, which we'll get into a little bit in a few moments with another practice, but all of those things contributed, and practice number 2 will also contribute to this, but I ended up in the hospital at the end of the very first year after doing a 24-hour nonstop podcast marathon, where I recorded 24 podcast episodes in 24 hours, and I published all 24 episodes as I was going along. It was insane. I just wanted to celebrate our first year in business, and I did. And right after that live stream was done, and right after I published the 24th episode, I went upstairs to lay in bed because I was in physical agony, but I couldn't find any place whatsoever. There was no position whatsoever that would allow me any easing of this pain that I was experiencing in my body. And I ended up asking Stephanie to take me to the hospital. We went to the emergency room. And then I was in the hospital for 2 weeks where I almost died. And there was a very real mix-up in the way things were happening at the hospital, where if things weren't caught and my arguing for what I thought the doctor said was not taken care of, I very much likely would have died in the hospital. And all of this is a result of no physical activity, not taking care of myself, and the lack of practice number two, which we'll get into. Matter of fact, let me just go ahead and pull up practice number two now and tell you that practice number two is proper nutrition, eating healthy foods. See, the thing is my lifestyle at the time, even before starting my business, was that of a normal, typical, greasy, sugary, carb loaded, fatty diet. That's just what it was. I ate cheeseburgers and French fries and tater tots and just everything, sugar like nothing else, bags of chips and just sugary sweets. I was nonstop on everything. And as a result of my weight as where it was, and as a result of the type of foods that I was eating, I was beginning to experience what's called hypoglycemia. What in my system would happen would be I would eat something that was full of carbs or sugar, obviously carbs that convert into sugar and just pure sugar itself. My sugar levels in my body would rise, and then my insulin would kick in to counteract that. And I had a condition that my insulin wouldn't shut off when my sugar levels went back to their normal rate. Instead, my insulin would continue to be released into my bloodstream, which would cause me to have low blood sugar. And if I didn't do something about that, my blood sugar could get so low that I would pass out. In fact, a lot of my adult life, I had experienced low blood sugar type mini comas, if you will. Just like I would just be unresponsive, and Stephanie would at times have to feed me sugar so that I could get out of it. It was never so much that I needed to be hospitalized for that, but obviously what I'm trying to argue for here is that I was not in a practice of regular exercise, and I was not in the practice of regular nutrition. And as a result of all of this stuff, every time I had that low sugar, I would immediately have to go and grab another sugary snack or another carb-loaded snack. And to sustain enough energy for me to stay awake and work all of these hours, it was terrible. It was caffeine-induced, carb-induced, sugar-induced energy. And I just had to continue to power through. And as a result of that, I basically destroyed my gallbladder, and my body was filled with gallstones, and one of them was stuck in what's called my cystic duct. And so this is what happened. It landed me in the hospital, and I almost died. So that was my wake-up call. That is where things really started to shift in my life. And today, I count it as one of the greatest blessings of my life that all of that took place. I am thrilled for the wake-up call because I came out of that experience with a desire to figure out what can I do in my life so that I can still do this business that I know for a fact is a part of my greatest calling, my mission in life. You see, I knew that I could not go back to a lifestyle of an employee. I couldn't go back to the family business as an insurance agent. I did hold on to my license for selling auto, home, life, and health insurance and commercial insurance. I held on to all of those licenses for 1 year. But right after I got out of the hospital, it was time for me to renew all of those licenses. And in spite of how challenging and how difficult that year was, the highest highs and the lowest lows, and the fact that I almost died as a result of my complete lack of self-care with practice number one, which is regular exercise and physical activity, and practice number two, proper nutrition, I still knew for a fact there's just no way I'm going to go back. That I have experienced too much of the freedom that exists for me as a full-time self-employed business owner. As challenging as it was, I knew this was the lifestyle for me. I just knew that something had to change about practice number one, practice number two. And so I started a routine practice of exercise in February of 2009. And for me, it started out with 10,000 steps a day. And I didn't start out with 10,000 steps a day, but it was a 10,000 steps a day program. I had heard about a man named James Dobson. He used to run a ministry called Family, what is it? I can't remember the name of anyway, Focus on the Family, I think is what it was. And I had heard about him having a heart attack. And after a heart attack, he had lost a lot of weight and had gained a lot of recovery and health benefits from his commitment to walking every day. And he talked about this practice of walking 10,000 steps a day, and he got himself a pedometer. So for me, what I did is I went out and got myself a little pedometer from a sporting goods store. I think it cost like $10 or $15. I put it on my belt buckle every morning as soon as I got out of bed and got dressed. And what I did after I got out of the hospital is, before I was able to, and released to do regular exercise by my doctor, they said, you need some time to recover. I said, great. So the first thing I did was I tracked how many steps am I walking each day just working at home, doing the routine, the schedule of exactly of what I just talked about. The fact just walking down the hallway, going downstairs to my office, coming up a couple of times, and then going to bed at the end of the night. Turns out I was walking somewhere between 350 to 450 steps a day. Every day. Pretty much 7 days a week. And we did go to church at the time. And so I might add another 500 steps throughout that day. But still, almost no steps at all. And I'll never forget when they cleared me. They said, okay, you can do as much physical activity as you want. Just keep it to walking for now, and then slowly move yourself up. But really, other than that, as soon as you feel comfortable doing more than walking, then feel free to do so. Everything should be recovered enough for you to do that. So I went out the first day and I'm thinking, it's like, okay, how many steps am I going to do? Probably not 10,000 steps, which I now learned was it about 5 miles is what 10,000 steps is? Can't remember. It's been a long time since I was doing the 10,000 steps a day. But what I did do is I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out and see how many steps I can do. I'm going to do as many steps as I can, and then I will use that as my goal. So I went outside, had my pedometer on. It was a beautiful spring day, and in front of my house, started walking down our street in the neighborhood. Pretty lengthy, long street, about what would be in New York City, maybe about 7 or 8 blocks of city blocks. But anyway, I walked all the way down to the end of our street where it dead ends. And by that time, I was out of breath. My hip was in excruciating pain, and I was out of breath. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is enough. And so I made it all the way back home, and it turns out that I walked about 800 steps. That's it. I walked 800 steps during that walk. And so what I made a commitment to doing is that first week, I'm going to walk 1,000 steps a day every day. So I'm going to, somewhere by the end of the day, I'm going to record a minimum of 1,000 steps. And so I did 1,000 steps a day every day for 2 weeks. Then I went for 2,000 steps a day for a week. And then I did that all the way up until just a couple weeks later, I was walking 10,000 steps a day. Now, somewhere along that journey, it all started with physical activity. It all started with self-care practice number 1. But self-care practice number 2, proper nutrition, eating proper foods, came to me as I was walking. I was listening to a podcast at the time. It's no longer available, but it was Dr. Monty. And he did a podcast called Fitness Rocks. And this was a doctor who read a lot of medical journals and latest studies on fitness and nutrition. And he was talking about the fact that it seems like the Mediterranean diet is the most appropriate diet for health and longevity. And what he's saying is that diet is by understanding that as the term of being the typical foods that these people eat in the Mediterranean area. These are the longest living people on the planet. And so I can't even remember all the categories of it, but it was lean meat, fish and chicken, nuts, beans, and vegetables and stuff like that, and whole grains, whole foods. So I began thinking, wow, I'm doing all of this physical activity. I'm listening to this podcast content. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me to continue to be sabotaging the health benefits of all of this physical activity by what I'm eating. And one of the things that I learned is that you can't outperform, you can't do enough physical activity to outperform what I'm doing in my food intake. And so I began at the time to eat a Mediterranean style diet. As a result of those two things together, I was just losing weight like crazy. Of course, I was nearly 300 pounds at the time. And as a result of that, I had a lot of excess weight, which is kind of like carrying around a rucksack. If you know anything about rucksacks, I just had one built in. So as a result of it, I was losing a lot of weight, and I did for about 18 months. And I was on such a, what I would say, perfect streak. And it was inspiring so many people. And I'm like, oh, this is exciting. This is awesome. And I think it lasted all the way until 2011. So this went on for quite some time. And then I caught the flu in November 2011. And I did not know that I had the flu, but I flew all the way to the West Coast. I was doing some stuff with New Media, Blog World New Media Expo out there. And turns out I like had this high pressure sense of pain every time I got up at altitude. It felt like I was about ready to pass out. And I called the doctor, and they said, hey, you came in to get tested. Your results come in. You have the flu. And I'm like, you didn't tell me this. You just told me that I just had a little, bronchitis. And they said, no, you have the flu. So they called me in some medications, and I was out like for probably 2 or 3 days, laying in this hotel room, not leaving my room. I couldn't leave my room. I didn't have the energy to leave my room. And unfortunately, the only type of foods that were available to me was room service. And being the picky food eater that I am and all this other stuff, I'm like, listen, I know this is just for temporary, but of course, what did I do? I need some energy, and I'm going to eat some. And what do I ordered like a pizza, or I ordered a burger and fries. And it's been forever since I've eaten these foods. And not only am I eating these foods I haven't eaten in such a long time, but I'm also doing absolutely no physical activity, where I had a perfect record of walking 10,000 steps a day every single day. And over time, over a couple of days, I started to feel better. And then when I got home, I was, trying to catch up on all the things at work, and just the mentality that I had and the belief system that I had at the time, it just caused me, that was like, well, gosh, I've ruined my perfect record. Look at this. I've gained, how many pounds have I gained since I went out to the West Coast? And now I've gained pounds, and I'm so far behind on work. There's no way I can get caught up. It doesn't make sense for me to get out there and, why don't I just eat something quick? And of course, at this time, I'm back on the sugar train of up and down, up and down. And one thing's led to another. And over the course of about 6 months, I'm no longer engaged in regular physical activity, and I'm no longer eating healthy food. And as a result of those two practices being tossed out the window once again in my life, I got back all the way up to nearly 300 pounds. And now, during the next couple of years, I had a couple of starts where I said, I'm going to get back at it. I don't want to get to the place where I was in the hospital. So I'm going to do this again. And I would succeed for 4 weeks. I would succeed for 6 weeks. But ultimately, I had this roller coaster where I would get back on and get back off of the health and fitness journey. And this lasted for a long time until November 2014. And that is the day my life changed. And I've talked about this journey in the past, but I'll just quickly say that because of a very special mentor in my life and the insights that he had shared with me. And through this entire process, I've been studying personal and professional development. So there's a lot of key things that are happening during these years of gaining greater mastery over my physical health. But what I found is that up until November 2014, all of these insights as it relates to personal and professional development, I've been pouring all of it into my business success. And as a result of that, my income is through the roof. I mean, at this point, I'm generating multiple six figures. It's just like 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 a year. One 12-month period of time, $750,000 in one 12-month period of time. And it's just like, okay, I obviously have succeeded in figuring out how to financially prosper in my business. But by November 2014, again, I'm almost weighing 300 pounds and I'm not eating healthy. And as a result of a special mentor in my life, he says, hey, I'd like to mentor you if you'd be willing to make these commitments. And here are some of the commitments. He said, number one, I want you to read my book, Fully Alive. And this is a book called Fully Alive by Ken Davis. So you can look that up if you're interested. If I think about it, I'll put a link in the show notes for you. The second one is he says, I want you to read a book called Younger Next Year. And it's by two different two different authors. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And he says, the third thing, after you read that book, I want you to make a commitment that you will work out 6 days a week, every week. And here's the kicker, for the rest of your life. And I got to tell you, that one both scared me to make that commitment, but also there seemed to be something exciting about making a commitment of doing something for the rest of my life. I had never considered making such a bold statement, and also 6 days a week, every week. And so that was another one. He says another commitment that I want you to make is that eventually 3 to 4 days a week is going to be cardio or aerobic based exercise, but 2 days a week or 3, it depends on where you go and what you want to achieve, will be devoted to strength training, building muscle mass. And then finally, there is one other commitment that I will ask you to make if you want to have me as your mentor. And that is, in 6 months from now, it would have been May of 2015, there is a triathlon in Nashville. It is a sprint triathlon, and if I remember correctly, it was 200 or 300 yards of swimming. It was 11 miles on a road bike, and then I think it was 2 or 3 miles of running. And he says, you've got 6 months to prepare for that, and you must complete this triathlon with me. If you're a go for those, I would love to mentor you. And this was somebody that meant an incredible amount to me. And it was an answer to a lot of prayer. And the time was just right. And because of some things that had happened in my life, and I'm like, listen, I say that I want to help people in this way, and I want to help people beyond the technical aspects of podcasting, breaking free from anything that's holding them from living the life that they feel called to live. So far, it's been about building a business, having a message out there, influencing people's lives. But one area where I'm not living the life for which I was created is in my health and physical fitness. I have let this slide again, and I need to get this taken care of. And so I made that commitment. And from November 2014 until 2020, I succeeded like no one else. It was incredible. I lost over 100 pounds of body fat. I put on over 20 pounds of pure muscle mass. I got down all the way down to 180 pounds. I started out right below 300. All right. So it was just incredible. Now, during that time, there were working out a minimum of 6 days a week, every week for the rest of my life. I lived that for a majority of it. And there were a handful of times, like 2 different times during the first few years where I had an upper respiratory infection. One time it did turn into bronchitis, and I was told I needed to take 2 weeks off. And I did that. And then as soon as that 2 weeks, and it's like, okay, boom, I'm back at it. And I was just so excited, and just that, again, that track record of success. And because I was doing that, I was starting to eat healthy again. And right in the middle of that journey, I was introduced to the ketogenic lifestyle, which was a huge boost forward in whole new levels. Not recommending it for anyone here. It's just my own experience. But it was powerful. And I can't begin to tell you just how much it felt to be that in control over my own physical well-being. The results on my blood tests, from my medical checkups, my cholesterol was perfect, blood pressure perfect, triglycerides perfect, everything. Where before, let's just say they weren't perfect. All right, there was talk about being put on diabetes medicine, and medications for blood pressure had already been prescribed, but those were messing with my sinuses, and so I stopped taking them. And there was all sorts of other things that were just the precursor of. And this physical activity, this absolute commitment to practice number one, practice number two, regular exercise and proper nutrition, they radically changed my life. Now, I would love to tell you that I have not faltered anywhere whatsoever since then. But here's what I want to share with you. So if we go to 2020 minus 2015, because we're gonna just consider all of the full year. I had 5 years of what I would consider perfection. But by perfection, I just mean that let's just say 95% of the time I'm living up to all of my stuff. The other 5% are realistic. I'm either sick and the doctor has told me, please do not work out, give yourself the time to rest and relax, and your immune system fight this off. Or I'm traveling. The fact is that I have to get up at 4:00 in the morning, make it to the airport because of where we live and where I'm going. I'm going to be on this flight for 18 hours, I think was what it was, to go to New Zealand and stuff like that. And it's like, listen, there is no way you're getting a full workout in today. You've got to make all of these different connections, and you're going to be on a flight. It's just not going to happen. So there were a handful of travels throughout there, but 95% of the time, for 5 years straight, it was awesome. But little, not so well-known fact, I haven't talked about it a lot publicly here, but I will share with you authentically. When COVID hit, right after, what was that, March of 2020, my routine was and my identity is I'm a guy who works out 6 days a week, every week for the rest of my life. That's who I am. And my routine for 5 years is that's done at the gym. So much so that I invested practically about 90 minutes to sometimes a little over 2 hours a day, 6 days a week at the gym. I was a gym rat. I absolutely loved the gym. The drive to the gym was a time for me to grow in my personal and professional development, the materials that I would listen to. But the workout at the gym, that was where my physical activity was. And I'm not blaming this all on COVID, but I will tell you right now, they shut down the gym. They shut down the entire world. Nobody was allowed to enter this gym. And as a result of that, I'm like, okay, well, I have my own gym in my own house. I actually literally have a room in my house that has everything I need to get an incredibly powerful workout. Every single type of workout that I would want to do, that necessary for cardiovascular, aerobic exercise, and strength training. I could do all of that here in my home. Probably have about $8,000, $9,000 worth of equipment in that room. Did I use it during those first few months of lockdown? I admit to you, no, I did not. I did not. My workouts became the consistency of going out for a 30-minute walk outside. because getting out of this house was absolutely a priority for me. And so during COVID, my workouts went from intense workouts outside to going for a 30-minute walk outside. Now, I did maintain pretty much an average of working out 6 days a week, but my workouts were they were nothing, quite frankly. And it took a while, and since COVID, it's been an on and off again journey with regular, real, intense activity. And 2023 is the year that I'm committed to re-engaging that practice beyond the quote unquote technically I got to work out in, and going all in, pushing hard. Now, I will explain to you something I share in my Train with Cliff audio journal podcast. If you haven't heard about it, check it out, trainwithcliff.com. I talked about in that podcast about some health issues that started to show up for me in November. No doubt some of it as it relates to the fact that I have let some of these practices, the first two practices, go. Not only did my physical activity not stay engaged since COVID the way that it had for the 5 years leading up to COVID, but also over time I started to get more and more relaxed in my eating lifestyle. First, it started with going off of keto every now and then going off of keto more consistently, and then going back on keto, which keto isn't the magic bullet of anything. But for me, what happened and what I found, my experience has been a number of times, is when I go off keto, eventually I'm like, oh, you know what? It's been so long since I've had a sugary snack. Now, I had decided to give up sugar for the rest of my life. And I'll admit to you that over the past year, I have had a little bit of an issue with going overboard with sugar off and on. Just it goes, I go like super crazy. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. And I'm good for 3 or 4 weeks. And so I'm just going to tell you that right here, practice number 2, proper nutrition. I haven't committed for 2023 that I'm going to stay on keto for the entire year. I'm still evaluating what I want to do there. But I am going back to my very intentional eating. And here's what I want to say for practice number 2. For practice number 2, proper nutrition, what I most want to do is I want to remain committed. I only want to eat foods that I know that will give my body the nourishment it needs to operate at full capacity. And I also want to eat foods that will give me the levels of energy that I desire to sustain me throughout the entire day with a consistent level set amount of energy. All right. So I want to eat foods that will promote sustained energy levels throughout my day to allow me to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish. That pretty much means that Monday through Friday, when I want to be able to have this same amount of energy from as early as 5 o'clock in the morning until I wrap up at the end of the day around 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, Monday through Friday, that means pretty much staying away from carbs and sugar and all of that other stuff. And in a way, I'm going to do a whole lot less when it comes to what I'm doing on Friday evening and maybe on Saturday and Sunday. I don't do any real work during those 2 days, and I have a lot more time to kind of just lay down and just sleep off and you know, if my energy levels dip down, I'm not putting anything off on the weekend. And so if I ever decide to go off keto and eat a little bit more of a carb, let's just say I a pizza or some French fries or a baked potato or something like that, I could have that on a Friday night. These are the kinds of things that I'm thinking. But when I think about proper nutrition, I still have a lot of insight. I have a lot of wisdom. I have a lot of knowledge about how my body operates under certain types of foods. And so I'm not recommending to you what proper nutrition is for you, but to understand that a self-care practice that is essential is, number one, regular exercise and physical activity, and number two, proper nutrition. When I have these two things, my life just is so incredibly awesome. It impacts my relationship with my wife, impacts my relationship with my kids. It impacts my emotional state. And it impacts the way that I show up in my business. So keeping these two practices on key is absolutely essential for me, and it's something that I have not been perfect with. And if there's any reason why I'm sharing such depth and detail with you in this content is because I want you to understand you do not have to be perfect. You don't have to live up to the thoughts and feelings and expectations of what would other people say if they knew this. Forget about it. In fact, I'm actually, for those of you who are listening to this in the podcast episode, I'm going to share something for those who are watching on the live stream. So I have a couple of daily intentional practices I have that I've decided I'm going to start at the beginning of the year. And this, what I'm holding up is my habit tracking app. And this actually includes the first 8 days of the year. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different days already in the first 8 days of the year where my proper nutrition has a red mark, which means that I did not make the proper choices in alignment with what I know to be the best use of my physical body. So I'm still having a little bit of a struggle to get that back into consistently being a practice in my life. I'm going to work it out. I've worked this out before, and I just wanted to share with you. You don't have to be perfect. And then there are three other practices where one out of the first 8 days of the month, each of them I failed on this past Friday. This past Friday got a little bit beyond my normal routine, and I just chose to let 3 different practices, habits, if you will, that I consider to be a part of my daily practice, I let them slide. I'm like, yeah, you know what? And so I share that to just say that I'm not perfect, nor do you have to be perfect. The question is are you aware of what the proper practices are that are essential for you to live the life that you desire to live? I know for a fact, practice number 1, regular physical activity. For me, that looks like a minimum of 6 days a week, every week for the rest of my life. And it's a little bit more than going out for a 30-minute walk through the neighborhood. I want to be back at the gym, and I have been back at the gym. And I am doing that intense strength training and intense high aerobic stuff. And if anything happens and they shut down the gyms again for any reason whatsoever, by golly, I am committed. I am going to get into my own little workout space in here, and I'm going to make it happen. All right. And I'm also going to figure this nutrition thing out. I've done it before. I know I can do it again. All right. So what is practice number 3? Practice number 3, self-care practice number 3 that is essential. Adequate sleep and rest. Now, this is something that I haven't struggled with for quite some time. Ever since I have figured out, that by getting enough sleep and getting enough rest, I have discussed, and by eliminating stress, anxiety, fear, worry, doubt, and lack of confidence from my lifestyle. And by the way, I have pretty much eliminated those things. Occasionally, some of it pops up a little here and there. Something, an old belief system gets triggered or what have you. But that never really lasts for more than a day or so. The longest in the last 7 years has been a week. I think I had lost 4 clients in 1 week, and 2 of those clients, actually no, all 4 of those clients had been with me for many years. And it took me about a week to kind of get out of like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And have I lost it? Whatever the case may be. All 4 of them, absolutely are still some of my best friends on this planet. They all four had independently different reasons. It's just the timing all they were unique. So and they were all individual different reasons for leaving. So it took me about a week to figure that out and to get back into a place where I was experiencing peace and full confidence and having faith that everything, that even this is meant to be of service to me, and there's going to be other people that will flow in, and I did it. It took me about a week to get back, and then as I did, of course, all of it just business has been great since then. So, but on average, if I ever get triggered out of anxiety, stress, or into anxiety, stress, worry, self-doubt, lack of confidence, any of those things, on average, those things don't last more than a few hours. And sometimes I can nip it in the bud within as little as 15 to 20 minutes. I experience it. I'm aware of it. I have some strategies, some techniques that allow me to process it, allow myself to experience it, but immediately evaluate what is the source of this? What do I have to believe to experience this emotional state as a result of this circumstance? And I'm able to clearly identify the limiting, untrue, false beliefs that trigger that, because what I know to be true is that everything in life is meant to serve me, and I'm thankful for those experiences and the awakening that allows me to find some more conditioned stuff in my subconscious mind that does not serve me and allows me to grow beyond what I currently am. So, yeah. What I discovered is adequate sleep and rest gives me access to greater creativity in my life. In fact, I learned the power of my subconscious mind. And also I learned the fact that I learned about what happens in my body as I am sleeping, especially if I'm have great physical activity, if I'm eating nutritiously, if I'm eating in the proper hours of the day and all of this other stuff. Wow, the incredible restorative ability of my body to repair what is going on through the wear and tear of my daily life. It is insane. It's like, wow, how could I not allow my body to do that? Now, I'm not going to prescribe to you how many hours of sleep at night you get. There's all sorts of studies that tell you all sorts of different things. All I'm saying is adequate sleep is an essential self-care routine, and rest is actually a separate part of sleep, and not just sleeping at night. But Michael Hyatt turned me on to this thing called the power nap many years ago. And I have made a regular practice of having a power nap. I probably at least 5 and sometimes up to 7 days a week, every week for as many as 7 or so years, maybe more. I've taken a 30-minute nap every day, sometimes a little bit more than 30 minutes, sometimes significantly more than 30 minutes if I allowed myself to not get the most amount of hours that I'm typically used to in the evening. Sometimes I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, eager to start my day. And I'm like, wait a second, I just got 4 hours of sleep. And so I allow myself to maybe take a 2-hour nap later in the day. Perfectly fine. But getting adequate sleep and adequate rest, not only is there restorative and effects in restoring your immune system and just all of this repair stuff happening in the body, it's also allowing my memory to process all that stuff and store it and make all the synapses and all these things happen. And there is a greater access to creativity, and my subconscious mind can go to work. So one of the things that I have learned is if there's ever anything that some situation or problem or obstacle that stands in my way in my business, and I can't figure out what is the solution here, I'll think about it for a little bit. And if I recognize that a solution isn't coming to me easily, a decision isn't easily made in this scenario, if I've efforted enough and the solution hasn't made itself available, then what I do is I will go to my journal, which is going to be a practice that I'll talk about in just a moment, and I'll write out what I intend to experience as far as a solution. It's like I'm gonna here's the situation that I see. Here's the circumstances I'm facing. Here's the potentials that could happen here. This is what I need, some sort of breakthrough. I haven't thought of a breakthrough yet. I'm getting ready to take a nap, and who knows, maybe by the time I get up, I will be filled with inspiration. And every single time I do that and I lay down to take a nap and I get up, It never fails. There's an idea, there's inspiration, and it just comes to me. And I'm like, yes, here's what I'm going to do. I have clarity. So, adequate sleep and rest. Check it out. It's good stuff. Practice number 4, setting time boundaries. Now, this is something that I have become a master at currently in this season of my life since October 2019. Now, I've heard about time blocking and setting boundaries for many years, and I've had varying degrees of success, but this is one area that I've experienced a lot of success with lately. And here's what I did. It was October 2019, and I had read an article somewhere about creating your ideal work week. So I'm a Google Calendar user, and I'm a coach. So I host paid mastermind groups, and I do a lot of one-on-one coaching calls, and I'm a prolific content creator. So my Google Calendar is where I store all of the activities that I'm doing on a weekly basis, especially those commitments to be with certain people at certain times for coaching calls and mastermind groups. So as a result of, or prior to setting time boundaries, I'm available from Monday at 9 a.m. until Friday at 5 p.m. or Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free for all. That's when I work. I don't work outside of those. By the way, that alone is a good time boundary, and it might be a place where if you're not used to having time boundaries, you may want to consider, I will not do anything related to my work before 9 a.m. and never do anything related to my work after 5 p.m. That means not checking your emails. That means not scheduling any calls before 9 a.m. That means not outlining anything. That means not writing anything. That was just like, listen, there's no business activities. And you might want to make the commitment maybe to not do any on Saturday and Sunday as well, if you're full-time self-employed. Now, if you're a day job person and you're building yourself towards your desired outcome as becoming full-time self-employed, that may not be as realistic. But I'm speaking specifically for those of us who are full-time self-employed. Imagine embracing the time constraints of nothing happens in my business on Saturday and Sunday. Nothing happens before 9 a.m. and nothing happens after 5 p.m. Imagine that includes thinking about your business. Imagine being fully present with your family. In fact, we're going to talk about that essential self-care practice as well in just a moment. But yeah, setting time boundaries. So what I did is I said, hey, instead of allowing my one-on-one, I already had my mastermind groups were scheduled Wednesday morning and Thursday evening. So I decided instead of letting my clients choose their 90-minute times anytime Monday through Friday between 9 a.m., some people would choose a call starting at 9 a.m. Sometimes it would be 11:30 would be the start of a call. Sometimes it'd be 1 or 2:30 or whatever. And so people could just choose anywhere throughout my day and it could fill up. And I could actually have, in essence, sometimes 3 or potentially even 4 coaching calls with almost no margin in between calls. Eventually, I got to the place it's like, hey, never let anybody to schedule a call with less than 30 minutes buffer. And so that started to limit it to 3 calls per day. But what happened was I'm like, okay, I want to create my ideal work week. What if I only worked Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I had every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off, 4-day weekends every weekend? And what would have to happen? What would I have to commit to make that a reality? And so I already had the Wednesday group of the Next Level Mastermind at 9:30 a.m. And I already had the PM group of the Next Level Mastermind. It's the only thing I do during the evenings. It's at 7:30 to 9 p.m. for those who still have a day job is the idea there. So I have those 2 meetings. I began to say, okay, nobody can schedule a call with me on Monday or Friday. And nobody can just pick the day and time or the time start at their will. If they're going to choose to work with me, in a one-on-one capacity, they could choose 10:30 in the morning to start a call, 1 o'clock in the afternoon to start a call, or 3:30 in the afternoon to start a call. And so what I did is I made those time blocks the only time blocks people could choose. So I had on Tuesdays, and my commitment was to fill all of these spots with either current clients or potential clients using what's called the Prosperous Coach system. And so Tuesdays, I would have a call at 10:30 in the morning every Tuesday. I'd always have at least an hour between the end of that call and the start of the next one. Then I would have a call at 1 o'clock, and I would have some time in between that. And my 3:30 call, it would go until 5. So I would have 3 calls on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, I'd have my AM group at the Next Level Mastermind. I'd have my my green room mastermind. I would have a time for lunch, and I think I put in content production in Wednesday afternoon. Then on Thursday, there was only 2 one-on-one coaching opportunities. There's 10:30 in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I didn't do anything at 3:30 in the afternoon because I had the PM group, the Next Level Mastermind, and I wanted that block of time. So I had 5 90-minute one-on-one coaching calls every Tuesday and Thursday. I had a 90-minute AM group with the Next Level Mastermind Wednesday morning, a 90-minute mastermind group with the Next Level Mastermind PM group on Thursday evening. I had my green room mastermind for an hour, and I had time in the afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, to create as much content as I want. All of that blocked out, everything known ahead of time. And so for the next year, I only worked Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I had every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday with no scheduled commitments with anyone. And that included no scheduled activity to create content or anything of that nature. All of the things, all activities in my business that was necessary to operate and also market my business all happened Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday within those time frames, at those time blocks, those boundaries of time. And it was the most prosperous and profitable and in time margin, financially, everything of my life ever. And this was during the pandemic even. And my business, I was generating an average of $29,500 per month. I'm a solopreneur. I have no team members. I do everything in my business pretty much on my own, except for once a month, Stephanie comes in and we do accounting together. And Stephanie is beginning to do some additional things in her side of the business here. But yeah, so $29,500 a month, every month, consistently for 18 months straight, only working about 15 hours a week. That happened for 18 months straight. And it was the greatest time of my life, setting time boundaries. Now, my schedule doesn't look like that right now. As I said, over time, some things happen. And as a result of that, I said, you know what? I want to actually start having a little bit more margin on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I started working Mondays and Fridays again. And what I did is I said, listen, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, every morning at 10:30, I'll have one call. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, I will have a 3:30 call. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7. I have 7 90-minute one-on-one coaching calls every week now. And that but they're set at 10:30 in the morning and 3:30 in the afternoon on those days of the week. And I still have the AM group and PM group where they were before, and I still have time on Wednesdays and Thursdays now for content creation. So still everything is happening. Instead of working about 15 hours a week or whatever, I'm probably working closer to 18 to maybe 20 hours a week. But if you were to look at this calendar, and how I did is I created a Google Calendar, a brand new Google Calendar called my Ideal Work Week. And I unchecked my regular calendar and I just put it in and say, okay, I want these time blocks every single week to look like this. I want every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday to have a 10:30 90-minute coaching session. Every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, I want to have a 90-minute coaching session at 3:30 p.m. Every Wednesday morning, I want to have that mastermind group. Every Thursday night, I want to have the PM mastermind. Every Wednesday from 11:30 to 12:30, I want to have the green room. Every Wednesday afternoon at 3, from let's just say from 3 to 5, content creation. Every Thursday from 3 to 5, I want to have as content creation and marketing of my business. That's all I want to do. That's my new schedule. If you were to look at this, every single day I have, and let me see if I can find this on my calendar so I can actually count the number of hours accurately. But there's always 3.5. From the time my morning coaching session ends before my next afternoon 3:30 p.m. coaching session starts, 3.5 hours every day, completely non-scheduled, nothing for me to do. Now, I can work in my business if I want to, but most of those days, because I have set time boundaries, I can go out for a 2 or 3 hour lunch with Stephanie. I could work on a couple of projects if I want to. I could do some things that are fun for me. I could take a nice long nap if I want to in the middle of every single day of the week. So that's pretty much a part of my life. Every single week, I could take anywhere from a 20-minute to a 2-hour nap every day of the week if I want to. Setting time boundaries, and I'm still making all of the things that are necessary in my business to be profitable consistently over time. This is one area where I am currently rocking it and mastering it. So I want to encourage you to dabble with setting some constraints on your time. All right, practice number 5, mindfulness and meditation. I never really understood the value or even what mindfulness and meditation was until the pandemic. This was just not something that I was ever brought up with. In fact, there were a few things where I was conditioned to think that it's a practice that should be avoided, especially when it comes to certain types of meditation and all of this other stuff. But I have since broken free from all of those limiting beliefs, and I have fully embraced practically every form of meditation that's out there. I've been dabbling with it for the last several years of my life. It has transformed my experience of this world in ways that I'm not going to be able to explain in this piece of content here. But what I will tell you is that my life is different. Everything about my life is different as a result of mindfulness and meditation. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you what I have as an outline, because the question is, what's the difference between mindfulness and meditation? And I just want to read to you something that I have written down here. So, mindfulness and meditation are often used interchangeably, but they are actually two distinct practices. Mindfulness refers to the act of being present and fully engaged in the current moment without judgment. It involves paying attention to your thoughts and feelings in a non-reactive way and can be practiced in any activity, not just during meditation. So you can practice mindfulness without practicing meditation. All right? Meditation, on the other hand, is a specific practice that involves focusing the mind on a particular object, thought, or activity to train attention and awareness. It is often used as a tool to cultivate mindfulness, but it is not the same thing as mindfulness. There are many different types of meditation, such as mindfulness meditation, concentrative meditation, and loving kindness meditation, each with its own unique focus and techniques. I'm going to put that description of the difference between mindfulness and meditation in the show notes so you can read that again if you desire to do so. Now, what I will tell you is that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the other types of meditation that are out there. There is Zen meditation. There is Kriya-related meditation. There is transcendental meditation. I have absolutely fallen in love with meditation. If there's been another area of my life where I have been mastering this would be another one. And again, this isn't all about perfection and stuff like that. If I were to fall off the wagon for a couple of days and a couple of weeks, it's perfectly fine. I can get back on. But man, I'll tell you, I use the Insight Timer. You can find this at insighttimer.com. It is a free app. They do have a paid version, but you don't really ever need the paid version. The paid version it allows you to go back and fast forward through guided meditations, which, hello, you shouldn't really need to do that, except for the fact that there were times I wanted to actually see, is this a meditation that I'm going to like? And I'll fast forward, 2 minutes into the meditation to see if it's got the vibe that I'm looking for. And so that does require a premium subscription, but it's really cheap for the year. But it's you could use this app forever for free, and it could transform your life. There's tons of meditations right now. At this very moment, there are 15,322 people around the world right at this very moment as I'm recording this, meditating using this app right now. And the app does it actually say how many people are using, like how many users there are? It's somewhere in the app it talks about that, but I'm not seeing it right now. But there are millions of people who use this app. I'm one of them. And it does track how much time you're meditating. So since I started using this app, I have done a total of 367 total days of meditation. Not all of those consecutive, but I am currently on a streak of 318 consecutive days. So 318 consecutive days. My total number of minutes spent in meditation is 16.8 thousand minutes. And what I have experienced during those 16.8 thousand minutes of meditation is beyond what words can describe. That I have experienced the most calm, the most peace, the most presence, the most in the moment, the most connectedness with God, the most oneness with Him, or the universe, or however you want to describe it. It has been and some of the most wildest experiences that defy explanation. Mindfulness and meditation. This practice number 5, mindfulness and meditation. This is the one area of my life where I have been able to say for the last 3 years of my life, I experience peace, love, and joy every moment of my life, regardless of any outside circumstance. Now, I've shared with you that have there been a handful of times that I talked about. There was one whole week where I lost 4 clients who had been with me for 3 to 4 years each in 1 week, and I was on vacation, and it just like, what is going on here? And it took me 1 week to get back. But outside of that, and let me tell you, during the last 3 years, there have been very significant circumstances that in the past would have triggered me into anxiety, fear, worry, self-doubt, and lack of confidence. Those things do not exist in my regular occurrence of life anymore. Even though, as I've stated earlier in this piece of content, that I have not been faithful in the last couple of years since COVID with practice number 1, regular physical activity and exercise at the level that I know that I'm really committed to what that means, and proper nutrition. In spite of the lack of those things, and in spite of sometimes having some pretty significant challenges financially show up in my business, in spite of the situations that have occurred with family and friends and certain other outside circumstances, I have stuff hit the fan just like everyone else. My experience of life is not that I'm outside of it and these things aren't happening to me just like they are to you. It's just that through mindfulness and meditation, I have experienced so much beyond what this world seems to be, that it doesn't faze me in the way that it used to, unless I get really totally identified with myself as the beliefs and stuff like that. I'm going to say one thing that I've learned through mindfulness and meditation is that I am not my beliefs. I am one with the person who is aware of my beliefs. I am the believer, not the beliefs. And I could go into so much more detail. And if you ever want to chat and talk about the various different ways that mindfulness and meditation could radically transform your experience of life, your experience of relationships, and your experience of business, and as it relates to how to eliminate guilt, shame, anxiety, fear, worry, doubt, not that those things won't come up again in the future, but all of those things will just be indicators of some things that need to be released, and when I say things that need to be released, limiting beliefs that are holding you back. And you'll start to be excited when you get triggered momentarily into some guilt or shame. And it's like, oh, I am not ashamed. I am aware that I currently have a situation that's occurred, and it's triggered the feeling of being the feeling of shame within me. I am aware of this. I am not shamed. I am aware of experiencing the feelings associated with shame. I wonder if I can evaluate where that's coming from. Mindfulness and meditation absolutely has rocked my world, and I think it could rock yours as well. Practice number 6, personal and professional development. It has been since getting out of the hospital in January 2009 that took me from what I talked about, barely ever being able to make ends meet financially, struggling to charge people money, feeling like a fraud, feeling imposter syndrome, feeling like, who am I to expect people to pay me and see me as an influencer, and all of those other things. I struggled with my lack of physical activity, my lack of proper nutrition, every other practice on here known to man. I struggled with everything until I began to be motivated to work on myself. And I had to first overcome the hangups that I had been conditioned to have about self-help, self-improvement. Even today, people that I love and respect, I hear them talk about their own reading journey. And they're sometimes when they talk about a book that they read, and somebody that I very much love says, so I'm reading this book, and it's one of those self-help books and stuff like that. And I know, I don't want to go all woo-woo into the self-help and blah, blah, blah. And I know it sometimes can be overly self-indulgent and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, stop it. There's nothing wrong with self-help. There's nothing wrong with self-empowerment. There's nothing wrong with putting your self-care first. In fact, there's this scripture that says the greatest commandment of all is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and inner being. All right? And then the second commandment is equally important. And in fact, these two commandments, if you put them together, they sum up everything that God would desire for our life. And that second commandment, love others. How? As you love yourself. So the more you love yourself, give that same love to others, and that's how you live out a godly life. Love yourself first. Put your own oxygen mask on. And so through that, I had to overcome the hangups of self-help, self-empowerment, self-love, and this is selfish. Once I overcame that, and it took me time to get over it, but I began to study all of these books about self-help and self-empowerment and strategies and tools and techniques about how to break free from the financial beliefs, how to break free from all this other trauma in my life. And as a result of devoting myself to unceasing personal and professional development, I have seen every single area of my life transformed. And some of you have been following me for the last 17, 18 years that I've been creating podcasts. Actually, it's been just over 17 years that I've been creating podcast content online. And those of you who knew me back then, 17 years ago, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, even 10 years ago, if you knew then what my life looks like, if you want to know how I got here, it's through unceasing personal and professional development. This also is a practice that I still consistently crush today. And that's one where I am devoted to a minimum of 1 to 3 hours a day. Sometimes I've spent and invested about 5 to 6 or sometimes upwards of 7 hours in a single day reading, studying, learning, and taking notes. I'm obsessed with personal and professional development. It's practice number 6. And then the final practice, journaling. Journaling is incredibly powerful. I have thousands and thousands of pages of physical handwritten journal entries. I have several thousands. I have a total of 4,700 podcast episodes. I have a podcast called Pursuing a Balanced Life. If you go to gspn.tv and you scroll all the way down, you'll see a show called Pursuing a Balanced Life. I think it was from 2006 all the way to 2016. For 10 years, I did a podcast called Pursuing a Balanced Life, 639 episodes of that show. That is 639 episodes of me doing audio journal format, just talking about my life, what I'm experiencing, and self-reflection, and sharing my dreams, my hopes, my fears, my anxieties, my worries. 639 episodes, about an hour each, sometimes more, of me reflecting of my experience of a 10-year journey going from employee to full-time self-employed. Then I started, I think it was 2018, the Train with Cliff audio journal podcast. Again, trainwithcliff.com. That's the second time I've mentioned it. I encourage you, sign up for this podcast today. Trainwithcliff.com. Read all of the reasons why you should sign up at trainwithcliff.com on the sales page. But since 2018, 343 audio journal updates. That's what I've been learning, the behind the scenes of everything that I do in my business. But let me tell you, when you are journaling, it improves your self-expression. If you want to know how do I communicate so powerfully, so openly, so fluently, it's because I am expressing myself in words all of the time, whether it's thousands of pages of handwritten journals, typed up journals, whatever kind of digital journaling that I do, or whether it is audio journaling, sharing my life and experiences and everything else through podcast audio content, video content. There's thousands of videos on YouTube, live streams like I'm doing as I'm recording this content. It improves your self-expression. It improves your communication. There's nothing like self-reflection, introspection, evaluating who you are, what you believe, what your values are. Why am I feeling the way that I feel? What beliefs are causing this? Are these beliefs true? Expressing your gratitude for the things that are showing up in your life. It gives you increased clarity, perspective, personal and professional goals and challenges. They just start to make sense about what's going on so that you can overcome. And not to mention the fact that through journaling, one of the various, just like there are probably at least 100 or more different types of meditation, as far as journaling is concerned, I think that for the one thing I will tell you is that journaling is a form of meditation at times for me, but also speaking to God through handwritten letters in my journal has been one of the most incredible experiences, right there with, let's just say, transcendental meditation and other various forms of meditation. Connecting, being one with God has been incredibly powerful journaling. So let's wrap this up. What are the 7 essential practices for self-care for the busy self-employed professional? Practice number 1, regular exercise. Practice number 2, proper nutrition. Practice number 3, adequate sleep and rest. Practice number 4, setting time boundaries. Practice number 5, mindfulness and meditation. Practice number 6, personal and professional development. And practice number 7, journaling. These are the 7 essential practices of self-care that will help you radically transform your life. Now, I recently have been working with somebody who is a woman who homeschools 6 children and works full-time on her own business. And self-care is a topic that came up in one of our conversations. And as I was preparing to share what am I going to share in this particular piece of content about these 7 essential practices, I went into a program called ChatGPT. You may have heard of it lately. And I said, what advice would you give to a woman who homeschools 6 children and works full-time in her business? Here's what ChatGPT says as a result. I love this. It says, it sounds like the woman in question is dealing with a lot of demands and responsibilities, both as a homeschooling parent and as a business owner. Here are a few pieces of advice that I would give her. Advice number 1, prioritize and organize your tasks and responsibilities. Create a daily schedule that allows you to manage your time effectively, and make sure to set aside dedicated time for homeschooling, work, and self-care. And here's what I see with a lot of people, especially when they have certain commitments. They'll put dedicated time towards the priorities, such as homeschooling, or for you, whatever else that thing is that you're committed to, whatever project or organization you're a part of. And then there's your work and stuff like that. But what doesn't get time blocked is self-care. It's the one thing that most people allow to slide the first. And this is essential. You have to make time for self-care. So, advice number 2 for this person, delegate and seek help when needed. Don't try to do everything on your own. Consider hiring a tutor or an assistant to help with homeschooling, or ask a family member or a friend to take on some tasks and responsibilities. And you really have to get to a place where you understand that self-care is essential for your well-being, for the well-being of you as a mother, as a business owner, for you to be, for yourself to be a wife, or whatever the case may be. You have to understand, if you can understand that self-care is essential, then it becomes that priority, and it must get scheduled. It has to be a part of the routine. All right, tip number 3, take breaks and recharge. It's important to take care of your own well-being and avoid burnout. Make sure to schedule regular breaks and downtime during your work, during the homeschooling, and even during your own self-care. Sometimes I can get so wrapped up in journaling and reading and taking notes and stuff like that. It's like, hey, maybe going out for a walk and getting some sunshine on my body might be a good idea right now. Or maybe I should just lay down and take a nap and just chill for a little bit. Or maybe I should just go upstairs and see if my wife wants to watch an episode of a television show. Just take time to relax and recharge and rejuvenate. All right, and then tip number 4, seek support and community. Being a homeschooling parent and a business owner can be isolating. I do know about the business owner being part being isolating if you are not intentional about this part of having support from a community. It says here, so it's important to seek out support and community. Join a homeschooling group or an online forum if you need to, or an online group these days, Facebook group or some Mighty Networks group or Circle.so groups, or wherever people are meeting online. Connect with other people who are business owners and or homeschooling parents. Or maybe you find somebody who maybe you create and curate and facilitate just a networking group of homeschooling business owners. So that and maybe even moms who are homeschooling parents and business owners to kind of just navigate through this. Maybe together you can find ways of sharing the load. And I could imagine a cooperative, and I know that many homeschooling parents are already part of cooperatives, but Anyway, I think this is it. Prioritize and organize all of this stuff. If there's anything that I would say is you have to understand that these things are absolutely essential. 7 essential self-care practices for busy self-employed professionals, even those of us who are not homeschooling 6 children. My hat's off to anyone who has all of the responsibilities of a self-employed. Let me say that again. My hat's off to anyone who is a self-employed professional who also has the responsibility of caring for and providing for and homeschooling 6 children. It is unimaginable to me what that lifestyle would be like, but I know you wouldn't be experiencing it unless it was serving you in the most incredible most powerful way of being exactly who you desire to be in this world. And so I know for a fact that it is possible for you to implement these 7 essential self-care practices. You don't have to be perfect. I have never once been perfect at any of these. But I just want to encourage you to look at these 7 and ask yourself, where can I begin to fit these in? I wish you the best in the year ahead as you put your needs above the needs of your spouse, your kids, your business, and everything else in your life. Essential it is to care for yourself first so that you can fill your cup up, so that the overflowing essence of your fulfillment of life flows out to your spouse, to your kids, to your business, your clients, your community. Fill your own cup first. Put your own oxygen mask on first. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level. Hey, real quickly, I want to just let you know that this content today is brought to you by the Next Level Mastermind. This is a group that I've been facilitating for more than 4 years now. Every single week, a small group, actually 2 different small groups, meet every week who are full-time self-employed individuals. A handful of them are still in a day job working on the transition into full-time self-employment. If you are living the lifestyle where you're taking on the responsibility and all of the risk of providing for all of your financial needs, we have a group of people who understand that risk. We understand all of the challenges, all of the obstacles that stand in your way. Most importantly, myself, as the Mindset Answer Man, I know the mental hurdles, the mindset issues, the limiting beliefs that can hold you back from having an incredibly successful experience as a business owner. If you have not done so already, head over to nextlevelmastermind.info, I-N-F-O, not .com, nextlevelmastermind.info. Sign up, apply for the Next Level Mastermind today. Until next time, I do encourage you to take everything you do to the next level. Mindset Answer Man. All right, that wraps that up. I am going to stop the recording there. I'm going to see what, if any, comments are here. So let me, let me go back to brand and hide that. Whoo, wow. StreamYard, let's see here. Carmen says, this is an important topic. Love this. Carmen, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Amazing, Mr. Jesse. Hi, Cliff. It's Jesse, laughing out loud. Well, hi, Jesse. Glad to have you here. And Luann says, crying emoji. I would imagine that has to do with something I was talking about that first year in my business. Luann says, that's right. You can't out-train a bad diet. Yep, absolutely. Guillaume was here. He says, just a quick hello before I try to go to sleep. He's in Europe, so he's about 6, I think, or 7 hours ahead of me, and it's late here already. Let's see here. John says, hey, Cliff, do you take vitamins? The answer to that question is yes, I do. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Let's see here. Carmen says, how can I access a habit tracking app like that? Habitshare. Let's see, Habitshare.com. habitshareapp.com, I believe is what I'm using. Yes, it is habitshareapp.com. And let me just go in here real quickly, and I will go to banners, create a banner, hit that, and then hit add banner. And then there you go. It is habitshareapp.com. There you go. Absolutely awesome. All right. See, is there anything else here? Let's find out. Andrew says, what is the meditation app? I didn't hear the name. So let me go over to banners, and we will create a banner. And that is going to be insighttimer.com. And there you go. Insighttimer.com. And I'm just going to type that in over here just to make sure that is the right insighttimer.com. Just confirming it. Yep, that is exactly the app. And it's awesome. I love Insight Timer. All right, going back to the comments. Let's see here. Carmen says, I've been listening to the audio podcast since I've joined in August of this year. Carmen, I am so delighted, so honored that you have been listening for so long. Thank you for sharing these practices, Cliff. You're welcome. Thank you for hanging out and joining me today. Mike says, well done, Cliff. Very interesting. Thank you, Mike. And then Dan Faulkner says, thanks, Cliff. Good information. Well, Dan, thank you very much for joining me. Everyone, thank you so much. And for those of you who are listening to the replay, thank you so much for joining me as well. I recorded this as an episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. You can find that at thecliffravenscraftshow.com. One more final plug here for the Next Level Mastermind, nextlevelmastermind.info. Also, if you haven't done so already, if you don't have access to my free opening keynote address to my Free the Dream conference, it's called All Beliefs Have Consequences. This 1-hour video could radically transform your life. It's absolutely free. mindsetanswerman.com/free. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.